Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right into a fast-paced overview of the SASB sustainability disclosure topics for the agricultural products industry. It's kind of like creating a nutritional label, but instead of counting calories and vitamins, we're measuring corporate sustainability. Let's get into it.
So how exactly do you measure the true cost of our food? It's a massive question, right? But today we're going to answer it. We're looking at the specific, hard metrics that investors use to evaluate risk, capital, and climate impacts across the entire agricultural sector. This framework we're exploring is exceptionally deep. It's essentially the official roadmap, a complete, rigorous list of 8 distinct topics that companies use to report their true sustainability footprint. We're talking greenhouse gas emissions, energy management, water management, food safety, workforce health and safety, environmental and social impacts of the ingredient supply chain, GMO management, and finally, ingredient sourcing.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover why SASB matters right now, environmental resource management, safety for people and food, navigating the supply chain, managing GMO strategies, and we'll wrap it up with the investor takeaway. Section 1. Environmental Resource Management, Tracking the Planet's Inputs. Our first topic is greenhouse gas emissions. Look, processing agricultural goods takes an immense amount of resources. So tracking direct emissions, what the standard actually calls Scope 1 emissions, from things like land and sea freight is absolutely crucial. This helps entities manage their exposure to wildly volatile fuel pricing. Because honestly, if a company isn't tracking the carbon from its own fleet, it's essentially flying blind into future regulatory costs. Moving right along to Topic 2, Energy Management. Here we see a very strict focus on what actually powers the operation. Agricultural processing requires massive energy inputs, as you can imagine. So the trade-off between grid-sourced electricity and alternative renewables, that plays a massive role in long-term operational costs and supply reliability. Then we have Topic 3, Water Management, and this one is absolutely vital. Think about it. A single drought can literally derail an entire operation. So companies have to identify operations in regions with high or extremely high baseline water stress, usually using tools like the Aqueduct Risk Atlas, while strictly tracking any non-compliance incidents. Why does this matter? Well, it's simple. No water, no crop processing. Period.
Moving into Section 2, Safety for People and Food, Protecting the Consumer and the Worker.
For Topic 4, Food Safety, companies track their Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI, audits. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is the strict contrast between immediate, major threats versus minor, isolated nonconformances. Distinguishing between these two helps companies prioritize actions so they can avoid catastrophic product recalls. Because as we all know, a major recall will absolutely devastate balance sheets and brand reputations overnight. Now, to measure Topic 5, Workforce Health and Safety, the standard uses a really fascinating baseline number, 200,000. So what is that? Well, this represents the total hours that 100 full-time workers would provide in a typical 50-week year. It acts as a universal denominator, allowing us to calculate standardized safety incident rates across the entire industry. And here's exactly what they're calculating with that 200,000 number. By tracking specific rates, like recordable incidents, fatalities, and near misses across both direct and contract employees, companies can sidestep heavy regulatory penalties. But honestly, more importantly than that, they build a workplace safety culture that directly improves morale and overall productivity. It's a win-win. Section 3, Navigating the Supply Chain. Where our ingredients come from. Topic 6 dives into the environmental and social impacts of the ingredient supply chain. Basically, entities have to audit their Tier 1 suppliers, meaning the folks they transact directly with, to mitigate some pretty severe risks. This includes monitoring for environmental degradation, but also serious human rights issues like harmful child labor practices. Engaging with suppliers on these specific points is completely non-negotiable for modern risk management.
Topic 7, Ingredient Sourcing, connects directly back to climate. It forces companies to sit down and assess how shifting weather patterns will impact the yield and the price volatility of their principal crops, which, by the way, the standard defines as any crop making up 10% or more of a company's revenue. Think about that. If an enterprise doesn't know how climate scenarios are going to affect their main ingredients, their margins are at a massive, massive risk.
Section 4, Managing GMO Strategies, Navigating Consumer and Regulatory Shifts. Topic 8 is GMO Management. GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, represent altered genetic material. And look, while they can do incredible things like greatly improve crop yields and boost drought resistance, they also carry distinct regulatory risks and major shifts in consumer perception. Those are things you simply cannot ignore in today's market. Because of that duality, companies have to explicitly disclose their strategies for managing GMO use. This means everything from navigating complex international import bans and suspensions to responding to mandatory retail labeling requirements and keeping up with rapidly changing consumer demands. At the end of the day, it's all about clear communication and strategic adaptability. Finally, our last section, the investor takeaway, from risk to capital. So, we've just wrapped up our fast-paced overview of all 8 disclosure topics. And remember, this framework isn't just about feeling good or good PR. Whether we're talking about workforce safety, tracking renewable energy, or ingredient sourcing, these standardized topics give investors a hard, quantifiable look at a company's true operational resilience. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Ultimately, if an agricultural enterprise doesn't know exactly what is happening from the seed in the ground to the final product on the shelf, if they don't know their water stress levels or their supply chain human rights impacts, how can they possibly prepare for the future? And more importantly, can you trust them with your capital? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.